Imagine that you have worked over a decade to become an expert in your field. Then, overnight, the promotion and opportunity that you've been looking for and dreaming of comes through, and everything changes. Overnight, you shift from managing self to leading others. There's one problem, though. You don't know how to lead people, nor do you recognize yourself as a leader or the impact that you have on others. This is the accidental leader, meaning you've been promoted for your technical expertise and not for your leadership ability. You are brilliant at what you do, but no one taught you how to lead people. According to research done by Chartered Management Institute, 82% of managers across all sectors in the UK are accidental leaders. In academia, where you add hyper-competition, complex organizational structures, and unclear career pathways, that number is even higher. My name is Daniela Bultoc, and in my 20 years of working with researchers and academics, I noticed one repeating pattern. Excellent brilliance is promoted, and you get promoted for your technical expertise. However, what I'm noticing is that these people feel unprepared for the leadership that follows. I've also noticed that in academia, leadership is an underdeveloped concept. Most will see it as an admin burden, administration that is an add-on to what they really do. They will link it to processes and alignment to organizational targets. Many, even when they are in formal leadership roles, they will not recognize their leadership influence as leadership. So, let me introduce to Dr. Sarah. Dr. Sarah has been a doctoral researcher for 4 years, and then for the next 8 years, she's been focusing on building her reputation as a researcher. She's been supervising students, publishing, and writing grants. And then one day, overnight, she wins her first independent research grant. And what an achievement! She's now a research leader. She goes from 80% focusing on her research to 40%. She goes from managing self to managing a team. And she goes from focusing on her own outputs on focusing on other people's careers and future. There is a challenge. She hits the transitional cliff. She really wants that promotion, but she really struggles with a sudden shift in identity, responsibility, and expectations. And she really struggles with making the shift from focusing on self on others. Sarah feels like an accidental leader, and she is reluctant to lead. She's reluctant to lead because she feels underprepared, underqualified, and she fears failure. She also fears that she might lose the social connections because she's just transitioned from being a peer to being a manager. Also, Sarah sees her transition in leadership as something that she's been thrown into, rather than something that she can master. But what if we saw leadership as a privilege and as an opportunity rather than accidental and something to be feared? Well, I lived these experiences myself firsthand, and I'd like to share them with you. So earlier in my career, I was managed by an accidental leader. Now, they were brilliant at what they did. However, they were not intentional in their leadership. They were always busy, but never present. The team started working in isolation, and we didn't really see what our shared goals were. People started feeling more reluctant to bring forward ideas or to speak up. As a result, I started feeling isolated. And my own imposter syndrome was ignited. I started wondering, am I good enough? I didn't feel seen or heard. I thought what I need to do is to prove myself. So I'm just going to work harder and harder. It led me into a burnout. 50% of the people who leave their jobs, they leave them because of their relationships with their manager. Over a third of the people who leave their jobs, they also leave them because of poor cultures, such as high workloads, bullying, and harassment. The cost is not just individual. It's systemic, and it affects innovation, talent, and retention. And then I was managed by a different leader, and everything changed. He was an intentional leader. He saw my potential. He listened, and he invited me to share my ideas. And believe me, I had lots of ideas. He empowered me to see my own strengths, and he created a space where I could test ideas, fail, reflect, and learn. He also helped me to really notice when I was going from stress and optimal pressure into overwhelm. Because he was an intentional leader, both I and my work thrived. We won several national awards, and we were recognized for outstanding work. He helped me reach further than I ever thought I could. These two stories have taught me different lessons. Accidental leaders are not bad people. They're simply passionate experts who are underprepared, overwhelmed, and they do not see the impact that they have on others. On the other hand, when we look at intentional leadership, now this is transformational. It creates cultures of trust where you can bring ideas forward, where you can test and explore and grow and learn. And it provides both the individual and their work with the opportunity to grow and succeed. So, going back to Sarah, we cannot leave her stranded and hanging on that cliff. The thing is, the story of Sarah is not unique. And we know this because according to UK Research and Innovation, they state that actually at the national level, there is no strategic scaffolding to support research leaders in their career journey. We need to support Sarah, both her team and her science, to succeed. So we must provide a strategic framework which is built on 3 pillars. 1, acknowledge the leadership that is already taking place. 2, practice leadership in real time. And 3, let's measure leadership. Let's see how this will work for Sarah. So let's look at Sarah from an individual level. Acknowledge. Now, Sarah has a bit of a challenge. She does not see herself as a leader. In reality, though, she's been leading for years, starting from supervising students, peer mentoring, and managing very complex projects. This is what we call ghost leadership, meaning is invisible. In the UK, right now, 72% of postdoctoral researchers are in this situation. They lead, but it's not visible and it's not acknowledged. So for Sarah, what would help is to go into a reflective practice that will help her to really uncover and discover more of her hidden leadership strengths. So she could ask herself the questions, what did I do so far? And how did I get here? What is the impact that I've had so far? And what would I do differently, intentionally, next time? She could even ask her colleagues the very same questions and ask for feedback. She might be surprised of the answers. You see, Sarah has been doing much more than she thinks she has. And she is much more prepared for leadership than she thinks she is. She needs to acknowledge it and articulate it. Let's move to the second level, organizational. So it's not enough for Sarah to acknowledge her leadership. She also needs the practice at an organizational level. In the UK, researchers get 10 days of professional development per year. However, only 16% take it. And you know why? Because publishing feels much more urgent than leadership. We must move beyond the one-off training and move into leadership practice opportunities, where researchers get the opportunity to practice leadership and get coaching in real time and feedback. I've been delivering on these programs for years, and they are transformative because they get the practice of leading and testing in a safe environment. Second, if we think about that transitional cliff that Sarah finds herself on, we need to help her with two different approaches. One, we need to help her with a mentor so that she can transition the complexity of the administrative processes. And two, we need to provide her with a coach who can really help her reflect who she is as a leader, but also on the impact that she has on others. Leadership is not theoretical, it's practical. And organizations need to provide the space where Sarah can test, experiment, and learn. And finally, at the sector level, we need to measure leadership. You see, Sarah has been doing a lot of ghost leadership. However, this is not recognized or measured. The solution? Let's make leadership a science. Let's recognize the leadership, the ghost leadership that Sarah has been doing and count it towards her promotion. Let's also support and reward those healthy cultures where both the individuals and their science succeeds. Because you see, when Sarah leads with intention, that's when both her team and the work thrives. Let's make sure that leadership is not an accident. Let's make sure we acknowledge it, we practice it, and we measure it. I believe leadership is a privilege, and it's your opportunity to leave a long-lasting impact on someone's life. When you lead with intent, you don't need to choose between well-being and excellence. Because what you do, you create cultures where both of them can grow together. Let's make managing people intentional and not an accident. Prepare for it. Be intentional about it. And also notice the impact that you have on others on a day-to-day basis. Leadership is not an accident. And it's not an accident waiting to happen. Leadership is a privilege waiting to be claimed. So, will you claim that privilege? Thank you.